Today we're going to go delve a little deeper into some stuff about collecting. What do you collect and why do we collect? Isn't that a crazy thing? What do you collect and why do you collect? Why do we collect? Because at the end of the day, we collect plastic or die cast or tin or metal, but they're just further extensions of children's toys, aren't they, when you think about it really? But they're just fantastic when we have them. There's something about the psyche of having that high-end adult collectible, whether it be a car or an action figure or a statue, that just drives us crazy, that we love to have. There's an innate thing that releases in our brain when we play with one or we take it out the box the first time or put it on the shelf in a nice display area. What is that? Why do we do that? Well, for me, what started me with collecting happened a long time ago. When I was a little kid, I did play with toys, with little kids' toys, because I was a little kid. And I just happened to save them, not because I was collecting, because collecting wasn't even a big thing back then for anybody. We just played with toys. But because I amassed so many, I wound up having a bunch. My dad eventually got rid of them all when I moved out to Southern California because A, I was an adult, and two, he figured he must not want them because he was over there. And he was moving, so he got rid of them all, even my comic book collection. So I didn't collect for years. I didn't even think about collecting from, say, my mid-teens all the way up to my early 30s. No collecting at all. And then one day, things started to change. One day I walked into a hobby shop, and you know what started me on the road to collecting action figures? Wasn't even an action figure. It was this guy right here. This was my first action figure. And you guys are saying, Jordan, wait a minute, that's not an action figure. That looks like a statue or a model kit. Well, you're right. It's a model kit. It's a model kit of Carnage from the Marvel Universe. But it was the first time I saw something like this. See, it was really great. Back in the day, they didn't have stuff like this in action figure representation. I'm talking about the early to mid 90s. There was no such thing as a Carnage like that, not with high detail or anything. Let's tell you a story. High detail and very great sculpted action figures were actually a byproduct of another hobby that started in the early 90s. It was called garage kits. Now, garage kits were simply people that wanted a better experience of their superhero or the character or the person or the character from a movie. They wanted their own representation of it, and there was no license to be found. And if there was, the license cost so much money that the average Joe couldn't afford to start his own business and get a license for a bunch of thousands of dollars to do a Anakin Skywalker, or to do a Luke Skywalker, or do a Terminator, or you get the picture. So what happened was these guys, artists, would go into their garage or in their home and they'd make molds of model kits. Now, in those days, the model kit was a model kit. It was better than Aurora, more detailed. It was better than Mobius, those type of guys who had licenses for some things, but not the deep licenses that other people wanted. So they went in and they made model kits. And they made model kits you had to put together in paint. And people that couldn't do that, they would buy the model kits. They'd commission them out to have somebody else build them and paint them, and then they put them on their desk. And people said, that is cool. I've never saw a Terminator that looks so great. I haven't seen a Venom or a Spider-Man that looks so great. The people that were heading that up was a model kit company called Horizon, was the one that was more commercial than all the rest. And they had Spider-Man, Superman, Batman. They got those commissions. Now just take a look at this Horizon model kit of Superman. Now this Superman was based on, in the 90s, on the mullet style Superman from the return, his return from the death of Superman, quote unquote, comic books. But look at the musculature and the definition on that and the detail on that Superman model kit. Never before this had there been a Superman model kit or action figure with such detail and musculature that looks so darn cool. And to top it off, Horizon started doing other superheroes that you would never see in model kit form. Also, with that same degree of definition and accurateness to the subject material and musculature. We ate it up as young adults in the garage kit scene. Look at that, RoboCop. There was never a RoboCop before. Model kits had it first before the action figures.
Yeah, in the 90s, when model kits and garage kits came out, they can go and make everything that us young adults love. Look at that Ghost Rider and my Carnage, Michael Keaton Batman. These things were never before introduced to the public in a form like this. Terminator Judgment Day, DC comic books version Batman, even Steel from Superman comic books.
And so once people in the creative community, people that were grown up now, but you still had a child's heart, still wanted to see action figures, they never saw anything like these model kits. It blew their mind because the model kits had size to them. They had definition to them. They had strong details. They looked so much like the actual subject matter from the comic book or the movie. Whereas in that day, back in the 90s, if you found it in a store, it would be a big blocky type of toy. And no one wanted that, for the most part. So it became a big trend in the 90s to have your own model kit or garage kit of your favorite subject matter. And it became such a big buzz that somebody heard that. Somebody looking for the trend heard that. And you know who that person was? Todd McFarlane. That's right. Todd McFarlane, the creator of Spawn and the great artist on the later issues of Spider-Man. He found that and he heard that. And he had just decided to create a toy company for action figure communities based solely on his license of Spawn, his character of Spawn. And he said, and this is true, he said, I want to bring to life an action figure that doesn't look blocky and chunky and generic like what we have now. I want an action figure that looks like it's a statue, like it's carved, but only it's articulate. And I want it to be like it stepped right out of my comic book Spawn. And this is what he came up with.
Yep, this is the baby that got it all started for me in the action figure genre. Once I saw this, and I was an adult at the time I saw this in the 90s, I never went back. This thing was all sorts of awesome. And look at the detail. At that time, I had not seen anything like that. An actual action figure that had musculature and detail that looked like it had been ripped right out of the subject matter of the comic books. And you can see Spawn back there on the comic book. Todd McFarlane had done it. And I got this figure and I never looked back. I started being a Spawn collector. And Todd just went on and did his thing with Spawn getting better and better, more higher detail each year. He just went and raised the bar.
So up until Todd McFarlane Spawn, whenever I would go to a toy store with a girlfriend or somebody, a friend, a buddy, and we go past the toy aisle, I would not even pay attention because all the things like Superpowers and Mego and all that, they looked okay, but they didn't grab my attention because they had no detail. They looked generic. The clothes were usually too big, too baggy, and not right fitting, and not to scale, and didn't look like it came out the comic books, but just was a generic kid's toy. And as an adult, I had no interest in that. But when I saw that McFarlane Spawn, man, I brought it and I kept buying, and that was about 1994, 95 in that era, and it started me off. And slowly I started building. Now here's what happened. Todd's toys set the record. People would line up around the block at Convention Center. Whenever Todd McFarlane was there, they'd bring their action figures. I'm talking about adults as well as children. More adults than kids would line up and have Todd sign their action figures. Kids that grew up and now read comic books, but adults that read comic books like Sandman and Spawn and all those adults-themed comic books, they wanted to have an action figure that looked like it stepped out of the comics. They started collecting. So this caught the ear of the toy companies. They said, how can we get some of that adult money? Those guys have a lot of disposable income. So what they did was they took a page out of Todd McFarlane's book. They started making action figures that were more bigger, stronger, articulate. They made them with fists instead of just open hands like they were doing previously. They made them with nice symmetry. They made them with gritty faces like they were badasses. And then Batman, the 1989 movie, helped too. So they had all that going for them by the mid-90s. That's why the action figure changed to what we have now, which is a more realistic depiction of what's in the comic book or what's on that screen. So that was a boost. And we owe it all to the garage model kit trend that started in the 90s and Todd McFarlane, who said, I want my action figure to look badass. and it did, and the other toy companies followed suit, and now we have toy companies like NECA and Mattel doing stuff when they do good, Jakks Pacifics when they're doing good, of course Hasbro and Marvel Legends, which are always doing fantastic. Look at the detail. And if you don't believe me, go back and look at how toys look, say circa 1990, and how they look now. And that's all because of Todd McFarlane taking a page out of the model kit book. Nice stuff, huh? But isn't collecting fun? What do you collect? I'm fascinated to know. Write down below and let me know. What do you collect and why do you collect? What got you into collecting? Was it a friend? Was it a bug? Was it something like me? You just happened to walk through a store one day and see something and you brought it? What got you into collecting? Isn't it cool when people come into your collection space or your collection room and they see the stuff that you have and they go, wow. Or your fellow friends who are collectors come in and they see your new acquisition and they go, man, that is so darn awesome. And they love it. Isn't that cool? Isn't that why we collect? It validates us when people love what we have and how we display it. Isn't that fantastic? That's the feeling that we strive for, of having our collection. Things that are really, really cool to look at. Yes, it is a great buzz when we come into our collection room to cool out and relax, or we bring company in and they look at our stuff and they're spellbound, or fellow collector says, dude, you got that? That's awesome. I got mine coming in, and we're all anticipating when the next big thing is coming from Hot Toys, or the next big shipment is coming in from Mattel, or the next big cars are coming in from Hot Wheels. Whatever it is you collect, we have that bug. But why do you collect? What got you into collecting? And you're a smart collector. Do you collect everything? Doesn't matter. Do you look to sell your collection one day? Is that why you collect? Do you collect from the heart? Are you artistic? Is that why you collect? You love the detail like me. I love the detail on these things. It just blows my mind. I have to own it. Why do you collect? Write down below and let me know. And hit me with a thumbs up if you like today's thing. Collecting is a fun thing. And remember, collecting toys, even looking at evaluating why we collect and what we collect, can be as fun as a barrel of monkeys. But respect the monkey. Play nice. Take care, guys.